Hey, Redcasters, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos. Go Big Red.
Women belong in sports, and women belong in sports fandoms. And so if you are a woman in sports, please be loud with us, and we'll support
you. What's your shirt, Abbie?
Oh, my shirt that says women belong in sports? Did I get this shirt specifically for this podcast? Yes, I did. This was such a fun episode, and thank you so much, all of you, for embracing this like nerdy analytic thing that's starting to happen and starting to happen in college football. As a nerd, as a stats nerd, I love it, and I love that it's being promoted now. So great job.
Welcome to the Forum, the show where we learn more about Husker Nation one fan at a time by asking the same 4 questions. I'm your host, Honky, and our guest tonight is the face of Husker Twitter. At least that's what it says on her Twitter description. She was once called the best and worst account on Twitter, and she was part of our Husker Girls episode last year, as you saw in that opening. Welcome to the Forum, our good friend, Abbie.
Hi, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so you gotta tell us, what is the face of Husker Twitter about there?
I think at one point somebody replied to one of my tweets and said something about like, I can't believe that you're the face of Husker Twitter with your bad takes or something like that. And I just thought like, I'm going to lean into that really hard and just embrace those stupid names that I've been called. So, I mean, even like the worst account on Twitter, I think we all kind of remember that. And I'm just like, yeah, why not? I'll be sure. Why not be the worst account? It's hilarious. And I just, I'm going to embrace it because it's more fun than letting them, upset you over anything. So, yeah.
No, I think that's a great point there, is to have fun with this, and something that we can do with Twitter is we can have some fun, and that's what I want to have tonight too. Is let's have a good time, and that's what the forum is all about. Before we get into the questions here, I just want to go over a couple of the upcoming shows we have. On Monday night, March 13th at 8:30, we're going to do the part 2 defense and special teams breakdown. So this Monday, 2 days ago, we did the offensive breakdown, and all those videos are out there on YouTube now, and they're broken up by position group. We have some fan forums on the way up here. Connor Hayden with Corn Craze, he'll be on Wednesday, March 22nd at 8 p.m. He's the #1 football talk show on YouTube. The week after that, Redcast Sarah, one of our Husker girls as well, March 29th at 8 p.m. She's the official mom of Husker Twitter, so I'm sure we'll get to the bottom of that with her. We have Adam Carricker, Monday, April 3rd at 2 p.m. That's just announced here, so a lot of fun there that we're going to have. And last but not least, Brandon Kavanaugh, we just added that today. That's going to be Wednesday, April 5th at 9 p.m. Husker football analyst with Athlon Sports. So, what is the fan forum? We go over these 4 questions, same 4 ones with everyone. Why are you a Husker fan? What is your favorite Husker fan memory? Who are your favorite all-time Huskers? And how do you think the Huskers will do next year? And I guess with that, let's just start with question number 1. And why are you a Husker fan, Abbie?
I mean, what else would I be a fan of? Is there a better team? I don't understand. No, I was, born in Omaha, raised in Omaha. I went to school in Kearney. So I think by the time I left the state, I was 22, and it was just who I was, it was my identity at that point. I grew up watching football games. We had, watch parties for football games. We'd go over to our family's houses every single Saturday and watch them. And it just was what we did. And it just seemed really normal. And then when I moved to Iowa and then later St. Louis, I think solidified that, oh, right, this is who I am. And that's a little weird for people. But yeah, it's just, it's always been a part of my life, and always will be, I think. I don't ever foresee a reason why it wouldn't be.
Well, your pinned tweet, I think, is perfect for this. And it's, I don't know, man, I'm psyched for every kid who wants to wear the into battle, literally all of them. And that is something you're a fierce supporter of this program. And you're not afraid to call someone out if someone says something wrong. And I credit you for that, to be honest with you. But you support all Husker, players, all teams. For me, it's inspiring at times because I become so football focused at times, but there's so many great things going on at the University of Nebraska athletically that are beyond just what goes on in the football field.
I think, for better or worse, I feel like I am optimistic. I'm just overly optimistic. I'm overly positive, whatever, towards our players, because that's to me. It's complicated because you think like fans are allowed. Yeah, fans are absolutely allowed to be critical of performance. I think that that's fair, and they are. But we live, especially now, and especially on like Twitter and Facebook and social media, in a world where like being hyper negative towards individuals and individual players is so easy. And it's really, so I don't like that. And so I probably have like veered to a little overcorrected in that regard. And I'm just really positive about it because I feel like that's also what fans do. And fans love their players, and fans love the people who choose to be fans. Like, I kind of chose to be a fan, right? I could have, I guess, chosen not to watch Nebraska football and volleyball all my life, but kind of didn't really have a choice, and that's fine. But these are people who like choose to do this. They make that sacrifice of other schools, other opportunities. They leave home sometimes. They put up with people who aren't very nice to them for having been in Nebraska. And so there's something about that that's so much that I just love and respect. And so yeah, if you want to come here and you want to put your body on the line in every single sport to wear that in, whether you play or not, do it. And I'm going to support you. I'm going to support you wholeheartedly. And then, if you choose to leave, that's, more power to you. But I'm going to support the next guy or the next person who wants to come in and play. And that's every sport. I've tried really hard. I'm like you. Growing up, it was all football. It was entirely, well, it wasn't. And then volleyball because I played, but we didn't watch a lot of baseball. We didn't, we didn't really do wrestling, any of those things. And now that I'm older and COVID hit and we had all that time at home to get into things, it's like, yeah, I love watching basketball, and the softball teams are great, and gymnastics I don't understand, but I'm going to watch it if it's on because I think that's great. So yeah, so why not? They're all making that choice, and they're all great student athletes. So
Well, and we've noticed that the last couple weekends. Now we're recording this. It's March 7th, I think. I'm losing dates, but March 7th, and we're getting done with a couple of weekends in a row where baseball's done well, basketball's done well, softball's done well, bowling just won, and you start going through this whole list. Wrestling, you mentioned wrestling there, and admittedly, I know so little about wrestling. I tried watching it on Sunday, and I can't figure out when a score happens. I just didn't grow up doing it. But when somebody has Nebraska or Huskers across their chest, on their jersey, whatever it is, when I see that and when they're doing well, I mean, I swell up inside and I enjoy it. I mean, I really want to see all of our athletes doing well. And so it's fun. This is a fun time of year right now that we're doing well. And quite honestly, Husker fans, we've been through a little bit for a while here.
we deserve this.
We deserve this.
We deserve this.
Gosh darn it, we deserve it. Well, let's move on to question number 2 here. What is your favorite Husker fan memory?
Well, I think I told you that I was going to cheat on this answer because I can't pick one, and so I have 4.
Go for it. That's fine.
Okay. Really sorry. This is what I do. I don't follow rules. I don't care. And I'm trying to I tried to put them in order. So the first was the first fan day that we went to as kids. My mom took my brother and me and a couple of our friends to fan day in '98, I think, because that was Solich's first year as coach. And we went, and if you don't know I think they still call it fan day. So if you don't know what that is, that's they did at least the time in Memorial Stadium, and the players lined up at tables, and you got a little book, or bought a book, I don't know, and you kind of walk down the tables, and the players would like sign your book, or they would sign a little helmet or your t-shirts or something, and you just got to meet all the players, starters, fourth stringers, walk-ons, everybody. And then you could meet the coaches and you could have your pictures taken with them. And it was just a way for all the fans, and especially younger fans, I think mostly it's geared towards kids, to get that really cool experience of like, these are your heroes, right? These are the guys that you love watching. And so getting to do that was really cool. That's the only year we only did it once. And I just think it, was really hard to get a bunch of kids into Lincoln. But it was such a great memory. And I've begged my mom. My mom's trying to find pictures of it because I know she has some. So if I find them of little like 8-year-old Abbie, I will post them. And my brother got a picture with Frank Solich, and he just looks so mad. Frank does. He just looks so unhappy to be there. And it's probably because he was there all day. But also that's
It's
just like
hot.
Yeah, I think it was, I mean, because nobody wants to be there at that point. But yeah, like, so I've got that. So I've got like Tracy Wistrom's autograph, which we'll get to that question of why that's so important to me. But it was so cool. At that time, I was just like, oh, I have these players. They're amazing. They're my favorites. They're gonna go pro, and but at 8, that was the coolest thing that could have happened. So that's one. And then my second is I went to the Nebraska volleyball camp when I was in 8th grade, because I played volleyball growing up. And when you play volleyball growing up in the state of Nebraska, you love the volleyball team, and they were good. I went in 2002. So it was right after they had won the national championship. So it was like huge. Again, these are people that I looked up to, and I was like, I want to be these women. I'm never going to be this tall, but maybe I can be as like strong and powerful and amazing as them. And so it was kind of similar to senior days. You got to meet them, you got autographs, all of that, but then you got to be coached by them for like a week. You just did drills with the Nebraska team with like, I don't know, Melissa Elmer like taught us how to hit. And it was like the most amazing thing that a young volleyball player could get to experience. And so, I wasn't a great volleyball player. I'm short. I wasn't going to be amazing, but just any opportunity to meet them and learn from them was like amazing. It's like one of the best things that ever happened to me, which I think I just said about Fan Day. So they're all the best things that have ever happened to me. I don't care. Okay, so that's 2. So sorry. 3 was we went to the Alamo Bowl in 2005.
Ooh, the Michigan game.
Michigan game. And that was my first in-person Nebraska game.
Oh, that's a good one to go to.
Yeah, right. And so we went down to San Antonio, and we did all the pre-game stuff. And I remember they had like the competing bands, and the people who were like in charge of all the pregame stuff were like, we love Michigan's fight song. Isn't it amazing? Oh, also there's Nebraska. And so it was like this like very clear rivalry. And we're just like, oh, Michigan, you stole our trophy. Our 97 trophy's better. It was great. It was this whole thing. And so then get to watch a bowl game, a winning bowl game against Michigan was like so cool for your very first game.
Where were you at where were your seats, like that final play? Because that's the memorable, they start throwing the ball all over the place and almost score on us.
It was coming at us, I think. I think.
I mean, how many people were on the field by the end of the game? Half our team had run on.
It was the Stanford band thing again, right? Like everybody was. And I remember that we thought like, we're going to get in trouble. Like they're going to throw a flag because we're all on the field. And so we watched it happen. And my dad, I'm pretty sure my dad was, whether jokingly or not, was just like, oh, they might, do some crazy thing on this last play. And of course they did. And of course it almost worked. And then our whole team was like it was absolute madness. But yeah, so I think it was coming at us because I'm pretty sure we were like end zone-y kind of seats. But I have pictures of that too that I'll post. I didn't want to spoil anything. So yeah, I mean, if you just think, yeah, that's my dad.
Hi, Dan.
My dad. Yeah, we were in that end zone coming out. It was really, really cool. And then the last one also relates to my dad and is a little more, I don't want to say like more serious, but so when I was in high school, I got hospitalized for a week. So I spent a week in ICU, and the day I got out, my dad took me to Lincoln to go see a baseball game. So we got to watch Nebraska beat Iowa before we were in the Big Ten. Again, this was like 2005, 2004, something like that. So we got to go to a baseball game. And I was talking to him before it, and I was like, do you remember who we played? I don't remember the details, but I know we went. And I remember it was like kind of a joke, but kind of serious, of like, balls can't come at me because if a ball hits me, I could die. I don't know. But it was such a like special memory because my dad and I didn't do a lot of things together because I had a brother, and my mom and brother would go to things. We'd do things as a family. And so we didn't get a lot of opportunities to do things just me and my dad. And so this was, thanks, Rob. So that was just like a really, really special opportunity to watch Nebraska beat Iowa in something before we even knew that it was going to be anything. I think isn't that perfect? It's fortuitous. But I remember, like I said, I asked my dad, and my dad's like, oh, I don't know, it was somebody unimportant, Iowa, maybe.
And maybe that started your love of Iowa here, as we see in the tweet here with the hawk with the tear coming out of its eye.
Oh yeah, he's so mad about that. So those are is that too many favorite memories? I could come up with more.
Hey, if they're all about the Huskers, that's well worth it.
Everything in my life is about the Huskers, Honky. There's no.
Well, there you go. I'm from Columbus originally, so very similar in the fact that if you didn't grow up in Lincoln or Omaha, one of the big cities, it was always a big deal when you came here. And I love the idea of what you're talking about with like coming up here to go to a fan day or doing the volleyball camp. It makes me appreciate even more when you start to see the volleyball program and what John Cook has done to take it out to places like Central City this year, McCook in the past, Ogallala, and how those towns just, swarm around it. And I know John Cook even kind of made some statements recently about, this is something, I don't know what the rules are when it comes to football and, other sports, what they can do in the off season. But boy, if there's any way that we can have opportunities to have the teams go out and do things out in the communities, if you could ever have a scrimmage, if baseball could ever go to Hastings and play at Duncan Field, if football could have a spring, practice out in North Platte or something one day. I mean, I don't know what's possible, but I just know that those really are huge hits. And the state, we always say the state supports this program unlike any other program in the country. And I love it when the program goes back out to the state and kind of returns the favor.
Yeah. And I think I know I've seen people talk who have kids. I know I've talked to Adam about it, and he's just like, yeah, my kids don't remember Nebraska being good. And it's probably really hard to get young kids really into it because they don't remember any of I was a child of the 90s. I grew up in the best possible football era that you could. We won 3 national championships. I watched them all. It was fantastic. So it was easy for me, and it's easy. And it's not easy now, but you kind of can get through this bad time because you have those great memories. But there are kids who don't have those memories. And so I would think, agreeing with you, that if there was a way to really take that out to create those memories for kids when they're so young, of like, you just get to meet these guys. That's huge. That makes such a big difference. And it does form really, really important memories and bonds for them in the future, I think.
Mm-hmm. And that was a big thing always too with football, with whether it was the walk-on program or just making sure that we're offering in-state kids. And you're seeing that right now, is that when you would have players from so many different parts of every county was basically represented back in the day. It may not be like that in the future. We're not going to have probably any more 150 and 200 person football teams anymore, but still going out to Ainsworth, Nebraska, and to talk to Carter Nelson and getting into, I think that's Brown County, if I remember right. And I used to know all the counties and all the towns, all the county seats. That was something I used to do growing up.
If my dad's still on, he could tell you what they are, because he did those too. Yeah.
Yeah. If I could, I used to do the license plate thing too. So, that was always fun.
Yeah.
All right. Well, question 3, who are some of your all-time favorite Huskers?
Okay. So the first time we asked this question back on the Husk Girls episode, it was and still is correct. It's Grant Wistrom is my favorite football player of all time, ever, forever and ever. Amen. Whatever. again, that's why, like, from meeting like Tracy Wistrom, I was like, this is the closest to Grant Wistrom I'll ever get. I'm just like one generation, like 1 degree of separation from him. And it was, I mean, I was 8. What did an 8-year-old know other than like, oh, he tackles people really well. Oh, I love that. And so,
Mhm.
still is to this day. There's a guy on my alumni board down here who played in '97 with him, and and we keep joking. I'm like, when are you gonna call him? He doesn't live that far. Call him. Have him come up to St. Louis. I'll be good. I won't even show up, and I'll just like hide in a plant or something. Um, that's not stalkerish at all. Um, so Grant Wistrom, 100%. And then I was trying to think of volleyball, who they were, because again, that was big to me. And I mean, you have Jordan Larson, that's a given. She's phenomenal, just a phenomenal player, and left such an impact. But then, people like Melissa Elmer and
Mhm.
Laura Pilikowski and Jenna Dowling was another one who just like, who I think probably because I met them at the camps and stuff, had such an impact that when I watch old games, it's like, oh, right. Yeah. Oh, right.
Mm.
Melissa Elmer did that. Oh, Laura Pilikowski. Like it's like going back. And so those are probably my favorite volleyball players growing up who have stuck with me.
That's the thing too with Husker athletics is that when Nebraska's at its best, my feelings on in-state. And we need in-state kids. We need a big in-state presence there. But we also, of course, we're going to go out and get some of the best players from around the globe. Quite honestly, and with volleyball, there, one of my favorites was Sarah Pavin, and
Mhm.
she was from Canada. And then you mentioned Laura Pilikowski, and from my hometown of Columbus, right there. Right? And you make connections as fans a lot of times to somebody from maybe from where they're at. When I was really, I mean, I've always been in the football, but in the mid 90s, when we were winning all those games, being from Columbus, Corey Schlesinger was a Columbus High graduate, and there he is running it in, for the two final touchdowns. And I'm like, that
Yeah,
guy, his dad, ran the sanitation service. He was the garbage man for our area. And
that's
Corey
awesome.
used to, like, every once in a while come by and, like, he'd work for his dad maybe on a summer day sometimes, and like he'd take our trash, and here's this Hulk just throwing our trash cans around, and that's Corey Schlesinger. There he is scoring touchdowns. And Jesse Cush was on, I played with him at Scotus, and there he was, 3-year starting punter for us. And we just had a number of guys like that, Tim Carpenter, Jeff Lake, and it was really cool when you knew that you had people from your area. And again, we're seeing that right now too. I mean, we're seeing it's something that excites me about what Coach Rule, what this staff has already done, going out to 125, I think, schools. Uh, but that's such an important factor, and that's something. Whether you're winning or losing, I think that also can start to kind of weed itself down to the kids that you're talking about. Maybe they haven't seen us win yet, but if they've seen the coaches come by, those kids that were at Ainsworth High School when Coach Rule shows up on a recruiting visit, and they're just in awe, and they're wearing their red, and we haven't won a game, but boy, they sure seem to like it. So that's
Yeah.
we need more of that.
And again, I think going back to like having those connections is if so my only the closest connection I have to a player, I went to high school with Niles Paul.
Mhm.
He was, I think, a year below me. Um, and so like him getting to play, I was already a fan. It was already really cool. But that there were people who then were like tuning in because they knew Niles, whether they knew him
Mhm.
from high school, they knew him just from the neighborhood, they knew him growing up, all of that. And so when you start getting those, even if you just get Nebraska kids to come play for you, there's kind of that like those like other people who kind of know them that then you bring them in. And even if you only initially bring them in for that player. So a bad example is like, let's say somebody's like, I'm going to watch Nebraska just because I love Malachi Coleman's story,
Mhm.
which is a great story. It absolutely. So you get people who are going to like, I'm going to watch because that kid's got such a good story. I want to support him. I want to do all this. And whether we win or not, he's there. And then in 4 years, maybe that person is just like, well, I used to watch him. I'll keep watching him, right? So there's even a way to like get those people in just based off of pulling Nebraska kids into the program. And I think I had a thought about this that like I think Johnny brought up last week about like it may have been a thing that got taken for granted. And I think that's what I think there was a little bit of that. And I think a little bit of like, well, it's been so long since we've gone after Nebraska kids. I don't know how we do it, but they should want to come here. We're great.
Mhm.
We're Nebraska. Why wouldn't they want to? And so I think that's a big I think that that's been what a benefit of Rule, right? Is that he doesn't take it for granted, and I don't think that's I try not to be critical. It's really hard for me to be like, oh, I think Scott Frost took it for granted. I think he did, and I think a lot of us did, because I don't think a lot of us even realized how bad our in-state recruiting had become over the years,
Mm,
over the last couple ones. So I think that's a good thing, and like I said, that's how we get memories. That's how we get new kids and new fans and stuff. So
mm.
that
I
jumped into
equate it that
the
the
question,
closest thing I can do is the coaches clinics that I've went to, starting with the last year of Solich and then all the way through the second year of Frost, to do that over the course of about 20 years and through all those coaching changes. So Solich to Callahan, Callahan to Pelini to Riley to Frost. It's just over time we saw
sorry.
a coaches clinic in the spring that was one of the most highly attended in the country, and it just kind of trailed off over the years.
Mhm.
And it's what I really hope. I'm really a big proponent of is I want to see this one this year just be huge.
Yeah.
This staff has already made such an impression to go all across the state. I mean, to hit every corner, and now so that's their outreach. They've gone out to the coaches. Now I hope those coaches in mass come
Mhm.
back and kind
Mhm.
of show that support back. But that it is about those connections and the relationships. That's what recruiting and everything is built about. It's what volleyball is right now. It's a reason why we are a volleyball state. Is you think about what you did 20 years ago, and I'm from Columbus Scotus. I mean, my goodness, what John Peterson, our coach, did, and we built he built a dynasty, not me, but he built a dynasty at Scotus back in the 90s, and Nebraska had already won a national championship then. You were starting to see the seeds of it planted in state as early as that. And
Mhm.
it's everyone being involved and being involved at a young age, and then it kind of grows out of that. I mean, I can get on a soapbox and I won't go too far on this, but even like basketball, when we've been at our best, Danny Nee, he came in here and he recruited in state well. There used to be a Nebraska Bison Valentino's team that would be like an all state team of guys that would go around the country, and they would win they'd win these national tournaments against
That's
guys
cool.
that were going to go to North Carolina and Kentucky and the best schools. And it was it all started it was based out of Lincoln, but what happens in Lincoln with the Division I sports we have there trickles down into the high schools, trickles down into the junior highs. You see it every time we have a new coaching staff. Whatever the offense of the new staff is, all of a sudden high
Yep.
schools start copying it, and the same thing happens at all the sports. And so I'm really optimistic about just that piece of this coming back is really never taking that for granted again. That
Yeah, and it helps. I know this isn't even part of this question. I don't care.
yeah, go
I
for it.
think it helps to have an AD who's on board with that. It
Yes.
helps to have Trev be like, "This is the vision we want, and we're gonna make this happen," and having everybody pull in the same direction. So we're seeing that from the top down, which I think I feel like we haven't seen since what, 98? I don't know.
Yeah.
It really feels like it's been, and that's probably why we haven't seen the success that we've had. Is that yes, some coaches are great. John Cook's been able to overcome all of that, probably because he got left alone for most of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think having leadership that values that as well, the same way. It starts at the college, goes down to the high schools, junior highs, whatever. It starts at the top with that leadership. That goes to the coaches, goes to the
Yep.
players, goes to the assistant coaches, all of that. So I think that that's also, I don't know, Trev's not my favorite player, but he's my favorite AD. So we'll count that as part of the question. There, I tied it in.
There you go. Well, I think it ties in nicely to the fourth question here. And this is, the first three are all about you, the fan, and we want to hear about you, the fan. But the fourth one is, and by the way, all three of those are favorites of mine. But this fourth one, I just can't help it. I love talking football,
Yeah.
and this is one of my most fun parts of the show is starting to get the thoughts of each fan on what are we going to do this season. And so when you talk about everything that we've just said, from the recruiting and how the coaches have gone out and kind of started the base of everything. Right now, they're getting done with mat drills and spring practices just on the horizon here. What are your thoughts right now, albeit still early, on how NU is going to do this year?
Okay. I hate this question so much because I don't want to I'm like, here's why. I think we'll do better. That's
Mhm.
my cheat. That's again yeah, I think we'll do better, obviously. And my feelings, and I think everybody on Twitter can roll their eyes at me if they know. I don't think we were bad teams the last couple of years. I don't think we were bad teams. And so I think that alone puts us at a pretty good spot to do better record wise, to have a better outcome than we did last year. I am a fan who, in my heart of hearts, despite all the like, oh, I don't know, I want to like hedge my bets, I don't want to get excited. In my like deepest heart of hearts, if you ask me for my whatever answer, I don't see why we can't win all of our games. I don't see it. Yes, Michigan's very talented. They're very talented. We almost beat them 2 years ago. Why can't we do it? Like it's not like we're Colorado. And I say that in terms of like talent. We're a talented team. We have the foundation. We have all the resources. I don't see why we can't win it. We can't win every game. Do I think we will? No, I don't think we'll win every game this year. But I don't see why we can't. And so that's why I hate this question, because I'm like, oh, I want to tell you all of them. We'll just win everything. We're winning a natty. Why not? But oh, Rob, I've already been part of the Kool-Aid Club. You know that. But I think we'll compete for the West. I've seen so many of those lists that have us as like dark horses to do okay in the West. Like, well, why not? Why couldn't we? You look at all the turnover that's in the Big Ten, right? Just in the Big Ten. Let's take Colorado and Louisiana Tech and
Northern Illinois is the other one.
Northern Illinois. Oh God, Northern Illinois. Like an eye twitch memory of Northern Illinois. Take those three out because we won't deal with them. But let's look at it. So Minnesota, new quarterback who we've seen him. He's pretty good, but they've lost a lot of their offensive skill weapons. Right? They've got Chris Bell coming back, so they've got one. Okay, they're always pretty good. I'm not going to dismiss them as much as I hate PJ Fleck and everything about and all of his faces. So there's that. But then you've got, Purdue's got a brand new coach. We'll see how that goes. Everybody's really high on Wisconsin. They have a brand new coach. They're starting a brand new offense. I just am not as high on Wisconsin as other people are. They might still win the Big Ten because the Big Ten's up for grabs, but I'm not high on them the way that others are. Illinois is very beatable. We've seen that, not by us under Bielema, but they're very beatable. We haven't seen the Northwestern bounce back yet.
Yeah, so that was,
that one's always who knows what he's going to do. But again, very beatable. And Iowa, we beat them, so we can do it again. Yeah, they've got a better quarterback this year, but they still have Brian Ferentz. So they're all, and that's what I mean. Is like the Big Ten is the West especially is like, it's up for grabs. So why can't we win the West? Why can't we compete for it?
Well, and that's the thing that the last 4 or 5 years has taught us, is that we weren't far away on the scoreboard most times. Now, does that mean we were this close to winning, or was it always something different every game? That's what it tended to be. And a lot of that's discipline. Right. A lot of that is, honestly, the things that we think is going to be an improvement right away, almost immediately with rules. I would expect some more improvement from that. That there's a bit of a misnomer, I think, out there. And it's easy with, I think, Coach Frost to pick on him as, for all the terrible bad things. Or were we any closer to being better under him than we were under Riley? My argument has always been the games were more competitive. We were obviously, not getting pushed around as much and all those things, but we found every conceivable way, every conceivable game to lose. And the one thing I try to separate for me is I can hate the record without hating the person. Mm-hmm. I don't hate Coach Frost. I don't hate Coach Riley for that matter either. I hate the records that they brought, and I hate the record that we've had now for 6 years, not going to a bowl game. So, there's my big H word I hate, but really, I dislike seeing Nebraska lose strongly, but I also, I can appreciate, I think, what the effort was the last 4 or 5 years to try to get this thing turned around. I can remember early on with Frost, it was, we're going to do the Oregon speed and the Husker power. That was the vision. That vision never took off, or it never, succeeded with victories, but that was what the vision was. And I try to keep that actually in mind right now. when I'm watching, there's a lot of great things I see that Coach Rule's doing, and I can see the vision, and I'm 100% on board with the vision. I don't know that it's going to work, right? I mean, we won't know until we go out there and play the games, and hopefully we see, if we've been this close, like you mentioned 2 years ago with Michigan, that team's in the college football playoff, and we are a last second fumble away.
We're a correct whistle on time away from what
Yeah.
time that game is. That would we have sent it into? Okay, I black out a lot of these games as soon as they're over because they're so painful. But yeah, I agree with you, and I know again it sounds so like you won't talk bad about Scott Frost. That's not what it is.
Nope.
I'll talk bad about how the team performed. We didn't perform the way we should have. But I'm with you. Like it was not from lack of talent, and like you said, it was all those little things. It was different every game. Now, was that coaching? Yeah, it probably was a mismatch. It was. I've been a proponent that it just wasn't the fit we thought it was going to be. Right? He wasn't ready for it, and that was so clear.
Yeah,
it became obvious that this just wasn't the fit for him, for whatever reason.
And it started so poorly, 0-6, that I think it was one of those things that you're constantly trying to fight from behind. Yeah. And I do believe, I mean, I guess instead of me I'm not trying to go back 4 years and trying to rehash it or trying to beat up on someone. I'm trying to learn as a fan, like what was I seeing 4 or 5 years ago? And how do I not make that same mistake again? Like not, if you want to call it drinking the Kool-Aid or whatever, how do I'm as optimistic right now as I was 5 years ago when he came in here in that first offseason. I went to the coaches clinic and I watched him, and I watched how he interacted with coaches. And look, he did a lot of things then that I liked too. So now that I'm watching Coach Rule, he's doing a lot of things right now, and the staff is doing a lot of things right now that I like too. But, so what's going to be the thing? And, we've actually, Mac and I, one time on a show, we focused on the difference between little things, and we called it the basics. And and it was that I think there were basics that we tended. I won't even call them little things, because that they are the basics of football. Whether it was special teams on a game or that Michigan game, not kicking a field goal in the first drive when we get down to the 3-yard line, we don't get it in there, so we go for it on 4th down and we don't walk away with points. And it was like that, and that's an area that Frost never really could get over, was the importance of points. I know that sounds so weird, but sometimes you just have to take them. And his special teams were so poor. The game was so poor at times that you couldn't just, walk away with points. But those are all the things that, now we're getting to, where if we can walk away with points on drives, because our special teams is up there, and we're going to return kicks and punts and flip the field. And we're going to run the football, and we're going to get under center at times. We're going to get into a huddle at times. We're going to do the things in the Big Ten. Is that, if this coaching staff does what they're talking about, when Coach Satterfield's saying, hey, it's a cold weather, climate at times, we're going to have to get, run the ball and get 5 yards here and 3 yards and appreciate that. Oh, that's music to my ears.
I know. And I'm with you in that terms of like trying to learn from the past. And so part of it is that like, I'm always going to love this team, and I'm so hyped up for this team, and I'm here for it. I drink the Kool-Aid. I watch all the podcasts. I listen to Matt Rule. I'm like, yes, sir. I will run through this wall. You don't know me, but I'll do that for you. And all of this. I love all of that. But there is a part, and Johnny and I have kind of talked about it a little bit after his last game, after his podcast episode, where it's kind of like, but we've been through this. We were running through walls for Scott Frost. We were running through walls for Bo Pelini. We weren't really running through walls for Mike Riley. I wasn't for Bill Callahan. That was never those two weren't coaches that I was like, yes, I love this so much. But we've done that with prior coaches before. And these things that are like, we're going to do this differently. I'm here for it. And I hope it works, because I always want it to work. It's not like I hope it works because it's different than what Scott Frost did. Like, I don't care about that. I want it to win. I want it to work so we can win. I don't care. I don't care how I don't care who our coach is when we win. I really don't. I just want us to win. That's the most important part of all of it.
In my head, I have a style how in my my little world that, yeah, get us in under center, put a fullback out there, run option on a team and score. And like, that's how I want it to happen. But under Riley, if we'd have thrown it 82 times in a game and we'd win games, I'd be happy. Win
Yeah.
games, right? I
Yeah.
want victories. I think you said something a little earlier, and I'll reference the Frost thing, but I think it's an example of why I think we can start to feel some of this optimism. You kind of mentioned you didn't think he was ready. I mean, and that's
Yeah.
history has shown that, right? He wasn't ready. He wasn't didn't maybe have that experience. And I think that's one of the things that we look at with Coach Rule right now. And it's like, okay, this isn't his first rodeo. This guy's gone through it now multiple times. And then he did have
And
that.
and in more broken programs than we are. I've seen people, I get it, where they're like, this is the worst we've ever been. No, it's not. No, it's not. And so stop. Take your heart out of this and use your brain. And that comes off very condescending. I'm really sorry. I know I come off that way and I don't mean to. We are not as bad as we were at the end of Mike Riley. I believe that at the end of Mike Riley. And I think that, like you said, it's the effort. The effort alone means we're not as bad. And so I don't think so yes, Matt Rule knows what he's doing. He's done this before, and he's done it in worse places. He did it at Baylor, where they had was it 5 scholarship players or something?
They were at 45 scholarships when he took over. And exactly to your point there's, whether it's the end of the Riley era or I'm old enough to remember the end of the Callahan era. In 2007 got pretty bleak there when we're down 38-0 at halftime to Oklahoma State. There were some bad times back then too. So just to keep those in reference, and for that person that out there that absolutely can't stand Frost, then the first 3 games last year were pretty rough, right? Okay, that was the end of his era too. So the point is, what Rule is taking over right now, what Coach Rule is taking over, that's not as broken as it's not as broken as what some of those times were for us. And because of his level of experience, it sure as hell isn't as broken as some of the things he's taken over. Temple and then Baylor was just, that's a epic collapse of
that was
all kinds of
institutional collapse.
Institutional everything. They could have been on.
Yeah.
That's as close to, there's 1 or 2 other examples of teams since SMU that could probably been on the death penalty, and Baylor could have been right there. And and Matt Rule didn't have to go to that. There were other opportunities that he had back then. I think Oregon was one of the jobs that he might have had an option to go, and he ran to that.
Yeah.
He went to a tough situation. That says a lot about him as well. Yeah. And I think that's one of the things right now with Rule is that how he has started off here. He hasn't taken anything for granted. He appreciates the history. He wants to learn everything he can about this place. He wants to be here. He had 2 months to not come here if he wanted to. The job search for him is unlike any other head coaching search I've ever seen, where someone is sitting on the sidelines for 60 days, can come here on a football weekend with Trev incognito and have Trev driving him around and him and his family, all the opportunity to say, nope, I'm not going to take this. And it's his family saying, you need this. You need to come here. You need to do it. And so I'm not going to try to drink the Kool-Aid. What I'll say right now is, what I'm saying all off season is, it's the race to 6. Let's get to 6 wins. That would be that first year success that Frost didn't have, that I think held him back. I think we need some success in year 1. And right now, to me, success is getting to a bowl game. So the race to 6, that's not good. But I'm also like you here. I'm not saying 6-6. The race to 6. If it takes us 6 weeks to win 6 games, awesome. Let's reevaluate. Let's go win 8. Let's win 9. Let's win 10, right? I don't put ceilings on this program. I never will. But if we're 5-6 and Iowa's coming to town on Black Friday, then get to 6. Go beat Iowa at home, and let's get to a bowl game. And I think that's important. I could historically go back to even 62 with Devanian in his first year. He pinpointed the Michigan game, a game on the road, and said very early on, said, this is an important game. And it wasn't as good of a Michigan team. If we can beat these guys, that can start some momentum. The M word, Frost said it a million times. We just never could build it. Yeah. But let's get some momentum. To me, the momentum game is Minnesota in week 1 on a Thursday night. For all the reasons you said, It's
I miss winning our opening game. I just miss it so much.
well, in the last 2
I just
seasons,
want to be happy.
we haven't gotten out of August the last 2 years without, having just a really rough start.
Yeah.
And this is an opportunity. That's one of the reasons too, I think with Minnesota, I think it would be boy, it would be a signature win. And I know for some
So
Husker
big.
fans, they don't want to say that because it's PJ Fleck or it's Minnesota. That's a
We
team
haven't.
that's
When was the last time we beat Minnesota?
first year
Ross'
of
first year, right?
last year.
And it
We've
wasn't
been
even
4-1.
PJ Fleck. So
Well, it
yeah,
was Fleck. It was Fleck in
was it?
his it's his second year. But Fleck's first year, to go back to when we weren't at our best,
Oh yeah.
Riley's the worst game I've ever seen Nebraska play was 2017 against Minnesota in Fleck's first season, Riley's third year. And that game, go back on YouTube if you ever just want a horrible experience. And I think they returned the first kickoff, and it was just from then on, it wasn't good. So what I think is interesting, and I showed it a little bit at the beginning of the clip of when you were talking about the analytics and some of the things that you like to do, and that was with Adam McClintock was on that show, and then we brought you on, like surprised him. We also had Dave Bartu earlier in the show, and then he had to leave. Those two are with Matrix Analytical. We just had Adam McClintock on a couple weeks ago, and you have helped them with data collection now for the greater part of the last few years. And you are a self-described optimist, and yet at the same token, you are very much a geek nerd of analytics, and so how do you kind of marry those two things together, where you do the Kool-Aid on one side, but on the other side, you're very in tune with the stats and what it takes to win football games.
I'm not in tune with what it takes to win football games. Clearly. No, I think I don't know. That's a really good question. I don't and Adam and I have talked about that of like how do you balance being a fan and like having to be slightly or not slightly, you have to be objective in things. And I think for me what it is it's finding you can be objective and you can have stats and you can have the data and you can I won't spill what we know about the coaching staff, but like based on how our coaching staff is ranked, right? Compared to
Mm,
other coaching staffs. It, we're young. We're really young coaching staff. And so we don't have a lot of years of experience on. I don't think that that's a secret. I think you can look at our coaching
mm,
staff. We don't have a lot of college years of experience on there. But are we a good young coaching staff? Like, is this staff good for as young as they are? Yeah. Yeah, they are. And it
mm,
doesn't have to that's again, you can just look at what they've done in the NFL. You can look at what they've done already. And so you've got objectivity in that we're not Wisconsin probably has a better coaching staff than we do. I think if you objectively look at that, they're probably Fickle has put together a better college staff than
mm.
Nebraska has.
On day one, on
On day
paper,
one, yeah,
day one on
everything
paper.
being
Yep.
equal, yeah, everything being equal, that's fine. But when you look at who our staff is and you look at the mentality of our staff, there's a lot of optimism there. They're young, but they're hungry and they want the same thing Matt Rule does. They want his vision because it's going to build their vision. And so that's how I do it is like you have the numbers. Okay. So we know Wisconsin's better, maybe from the numbers wise, but there's little bits of optimism you can find in the knowledge that you get from it. And so I think that's how I do it is I just
Mm,
I can say objectively what things are, but within that, it's not bad. It's not
yeah.
bad, and there's things to be hopeful and optimistic about, and so now I'm just repeating myself, sorry.
Well, and anything when it involves numbers, numbers aren't static. I mean, this is a dynamic thing. It's gonna change. So to your point, on day one here, this is this is what I love about preseason magazines and all that every year. This team is going to be the top team, or this is the greatest coach, and this is the greatest this or that. And then all you got to do is wait 1 year to see how it changes and goes up or down.
Well,
Coach
here's a
Frost coming into Nebraska was the coach of the year, coming out of UCF. He was ranked high on those lists, and then you'd see things change. Right now, this staff, when we had Adam on, he mentioned how some of the analytics and the ones that he could say, because to your point, there are things that they can't talk about, but the things that he could say is that their stats looked at this staff and they look at every staff and they say how many years of FBS and FCS coaching experience do your coaches have? So someone like our new tight ends coach, Bob Wager, who has been a highly successful Texas high school football coach for 20 plus years, has zero experience in the database. Now, and Adam was very quick to say, doesn't mean he's a bad coach, doesn't mean anything. It just means we don't have any data on him, because if that coach isn't coaching in an FCS or FBS school, we're not tracking that. Or the other way, if you've been coaching in the pros, we're not tracking that either. We're tracking FBS and FCS. So when Terrence Knighton comes down from working in a pro setting, or that's even where Garrett McGuire is, what I like about Coach Rule right now is that he has enough experience that he can give examples of where this has worked. So anyone's welcome to sit there and go, oh, we shouldn't hire Bob Wager, we shouldn't hire a high school coach out of Texas. And he can sit there, Coach Rule can go, well, I did this a couple years ago with Joey McGuire when I was at Baylor, and he's now the head coach over there at Texas Tech. So, why don't you trust me here a little bit? And that's where I'm willing to kind of sit back and go, this guy, this isn't his first rodeo. And I think he's earned the right to be able to build the staff the way he wants to.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, to your point, like, there were programs last year that had award-winning coordinators and award-winning coaches, and they had losing records. And now those coordinators are looking for new jobs. So it's not just, and so again, that's how you do it. It's like, you've got stuff on paper that says how things go, but that's just not always how it works. And so again, then having that experience or that kind of history, being able to look back and say, like, okay, well, here's a school that had, all these award winners, but if they aren't all pulling in the same direction, if they don't all want the same vision, if they all have their own vision, it doesn't matter how well you score on paper. You're not going to do well. And things like pulling in the same direction, same vision, all of that. And Johnny kind of talked about it again, where it's just like, you can tell everybody's on the same, they have the same talking points. They're on the same page. They know what it's compatible. You can't measure that. There's not like a number you can put on that. And so, as much as I love stats, and as much as I love numbers, they only, in a person-centered field, sounds weird to say like football, but it's like why I like psychology. So you've got psychology and football, which are all people-centered. You just learn that, like, you're never going to be able to predict everything. So you can give a general prediction, but know that there's going to be human error, or error sounds really bad, but you know what I mean? And so for me, like, how do I find the optimism? It's that. It's the human part of it. It's that they might just end up being this, like, oddly great coaching staff that doesn't look like it on paper.
So. Yeah, but right here's Johnny. I think it's both. We can sit back and trust Rule. At the same time, if things don't go well, these will be some of the reasons why. I think there's a lot of truth to that. We started, and I've mentioned this a 1,000 times on the Redcast. We started in April of 2017, the podcast. So it's our fault, number one, and we've been blessed with a lot of great sports to talk about over that time. But that first, to put the time in perspective, when we started the show, it was during spring ball of 2017. That's the Diaco offseason, and Diaco is he was a Broyles Award-winning defensive coordinator, and I very famously said, in like our third show, so it stuck to the tape, but I famously said, I think this could be the best defensive staff that we've had since the McBride era. And the reason I said that was individually, and I'll even stand by it at this point, whether it was Diaco at DC, but I love Perella as a defensive line coach. Look at what Trent Bray has done in his career, and he was our linebackers coach. Bob Elliott, it was a couple of months before he passed away. I had just gotten done meeting him at a coach's clinic and having pork chops with the guy, and I absolutely love the guy. I mean, he was just an awesome dude. Dante Williams was on that. I mean, he's been, look at what his career trajectory. A lot of great coaches, but boy, it just, for a whole slew of reasons, it didn't mesh. It didn't work. They were switching from 4-3s to 3-4s, all those things. And it didn't work, but it didn't mean that they're bad coaches or, well, people have their thoughts on Diaco. Diaco's his own cat, but, but that's, I think, to your point, you can go out and hire very highly rated coaches that have won awards. All those things doesn't mean they're going to do well. Frost was the reigning coach of the year, and he came here and just didn't work.
And again, it's fit. right? And it comes down to that. We've talked about that. I know that you guys have talked about it and you hate it. It's the idea of like, what does culture mean? What does fit mean? All of
Mm,
that. And it's, you know it. Well, I was going to say that it's like the P word, you know it when you see it.
mm,
But that's what it is. And so, yeah, on paper, all of those guys are good defensive coaches. Together, they didn't fit. And
yeah.
that's why it didn't work. And I think you find that across the board. If any place where things work or they seem easy, it's because there is a fit somewhere.
Mm,
And typically it's from the top down. It's
mm,
the AD to the coach, to the head coach, to the assistant coaches, to the players, everybody buying in 100%. And it's not just saying, yeah, we're buying in. It's all the action and everything that comes
mhm,
with it. And so I think we haven't seen that as a program. Again, I've already said this. We haven't seen this as as a program probably since Solich took over. When we had an AD who didn't want football to be the biggest thing here and wanted to make his own mark, and then we've just been downhill from there because we've never had the right mesh of people. And so whether that's been administration and coaches, coaches and coaches, players and coaches, players and
mhm,
schemes, all of that, like it just hasn't been there. And so I think when we get that fit, and I want it to be now because I want us to be good. But when we get that, that's when we'll start seeing that success and being able to build that success. And so,
mhm. And you said, I mean, I was going to say it, and you said it for me.
sorry.
It starts with that AD down, and if this happens, if this is the time that fit, it all works. It starts with Trev there.
Yeah,
And over the course of the years, we've had so many. Oh, we needed to hire a defensive guy, so we hire Bo. We need to hire a pro guy. We need to hire this. We need to hire that. Sometimes you just need to hire the right guy, and the right guy, you don't know it on day one. I like to tell people Bob Devaney was not the first choice in 1962. Tom Osborne was not the number one choice on a lot of people's list from that coaching staff when Bob had a chance to go after Monty Kiffin, or could have had Warren Powers, could have had Jim Walden, guys that were all going to be future P5 coaches. He picks this young Tom Osborne, right? And it doesn't have to look great on day one. It's just, how does it come together, and is it the right person? And when it is the right person, I don't think I don't think it should take long to see that.
it's
And
like marriage, right? I mean, I don't know. I assume it's just like when it's the right person, it just
yeah,
is. It
or
doesn't
you
take
certainly
work.
know when it's not,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
I mean, like,
yeah.
and it doesn't take long. It doesn't
Yeah,
take long to go, oh no. I mean, I'll be 100% truthful about that with like Frost. Like I was a big I couldn't help it. I was a big Frost supporter, and I was
yeah,
sitting there in the first year going, oh, this shouldn't look like this. It just didn't take long. And
yeah,
that's why I think this first season's so important for Rule. Not that he has to go out, and I'm not saying 10-2
win the
and
whole
throwing
thing.
crazy
Right.
things like that, but this shouldn't look bad either. We should
Yeah,
not be going out to Minnesota, and it shouldn't be a 38-0 halftime deficit, and we look lost. That would not be good.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
That would
And
be rough.
yeah, that would be really painful. No, I agree. And I full disclosure, Rule was not the top of my list.
Mm,
Like looking at who we wanted. There were other people that I thought like this guy, like this is a guy. I like this guy so much better. And he hasn't,
mhm,
screwed up in the NFL and he hasn't bolted from teams right away. I was very like, I don't know. I don't know if this is I get it. Like on paper, he makes sense. I don't know. I wasn't sold on. And even, when the rumors came and it was finally announced, I texted Dave and I was just like, oh, God, okay. All right, I suppose. Um, but we talked about it and it was just like, yeah, no, I get it on paper. I
mhm,
get why it works. But you're right. Like when you hear him, you're like, okay, and even first press conference, loved it.
yep.
Goosebumps. Just like we've never had this. And then at the same time, I went, but he knows how to talk to the media. Like he knows what he's doing. Like, is he just saying the things that we want to hear? Because there are coaches that do that, and we know that there are people who do that. And so even then, I was just like, oh, I don't know. He's just saying things. But to your point, it sure seems like
It
he's
sure
he's
sounds good.
he's walking the walk as much as he's talking it. And so it is like he's not just saying, he's not doing the thing we all do when we apply for jobs of like, I want this job because it is a perfect fit. I match all your call, right? Because people do that. I did it. It's fine. It felt like that at first, but now it definitely seems like the behaviors are matching. And so it isn't just I'm going to say the right things. He's acting in a way that matches with that. And so
Yeah.
that is what has won me over with him. But yeah, to your point, a lot of people didn't want him. A lot of people don't want any of the coaches. I think the only one that has ever been a true high consensus was Scott. And I think people can deny it all they want. At the time, that was a slam dunk hire. You weren't going to get anybody better. Whereas this year, it's like, well, who else are we? I don't know.
Yeah, there could have been a lot of people that they could have hired this year that would have been credible coaches, and
Probably
that's the
would have
thing.
been fine. Yeah.
My biggest thing, like I don't know if this was against Rule. My biggest thing with Rules, I just literally knew nothing about him. I didn't know how he sounded. I didn't know how he looked. Apparently, he looks very good because I am his doppelganger. So yeah, he's a good looking dude. Good looking dude, right? But but what was interesting with him? Yeah, thank you, Rob. But what was interesting with it is that first press conference, when I talked about the it factor, like it shouldn't take long for it to feel right. When he started talking, it was I'd never heard him really speak much before, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, he's saying the right things. Now you got to go out and do it, but it didn't take him long to win me over, and I didn't know much about him at all. So and we've had so many other coaches, Frost, Riley, Bo, all these guys have had opportunities to win us over too. And if it was so easy, they all would have done it. To be quite honest, I mean, he by far
the best speaker.
Rule is the best speaker we've had.
Never had a coach who can speak like him. Never.
No, never. Yeah. Not.
But that's what made me nervous. If we're being honest, I was just like, oh no, is he just slick? Is this?
Yeah. Don't be a car salesman. Don't be a car salesman.
Well, as a preacher's kid, you're kind of like, okay, he knows how to talk to, and that was, but oh man, I remember watching that and like texting my mom, like, we've never had this. We've never had this. And as much as we got fired up for Scott and for Bo, it wasn't in this same way. And so you're right. Like you take that combined with now the behaviors, and it's just like, man, how do you not love this guy? How do you not like want him to succeed?
Oh, I can't wait. I'm ecstatic that we have him. I think he's a perfect fit. And I think Trev, did a great job getting him here. Well, this has been a great chat here, Abbie. And I mentioned the doppelganger thing that obviously I have with Coach. But I should mention that we have another doppelganger effect going here too. On the left is Redcast Rudy. He is the official 6th member of the Redcast, sitting in the chair I'm in right now. And you responded with, is it Rue? How do you say it?
Yeah, it's Rue. Like Rue? The sauce. Yeah.
Like the sauce. Okay. So, and even the look on their faces is almost identical here. The angles and everything. I think we've got a doppelganger going here, Abbie.
We do. Yeah. It's what's great about both Rudy and Rue is you can make a joke about Coach Rule, right? always thinking of puns to throw in there. Yeah, I loved that. I saw that picture and I just thought, oh, that looks like mine. Yeah, she's the best.
Rudy will be taking Rob's place in 2024 as the #1 overall recruit of the Redcast.
Yeah, sorry, Rob.
Thank you, Rob. Yeah,
we called that.
Well, as is the tradition here on the Redcast, also on the fan forum, we get to parting shots, and we always allow our guests to have the parting shot. So the floor is yours. Take us out of here, Abbie.
Happy International Women's Day. Like I said on the first one, support women in sports, support women fans. If you are a fan, be loud, be vocal. We love you. We want more of you. We know you're out there. And Johnny, tell your dad I said hi.
That's awesome. Well, with those shots fired, we're going to call that a forum. But just remember, Redcasters, you too can be the next to join us on the forum.
A Herd at Sports Network production.